Hey, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time of the day it is you're watching this program. Welcome to Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff. And as you can see, we have our friend of the program, Johnny, to obviously talk about the Eagles uh, Commanders game that was a Thursday night game, which we'll probably get into that too, because I think the Thursday night game and schedule had something to do with I believe that both teams really kind of starting off slow. But we'll dive into that, and Matt's going to be joining us here shortly, so we'll have him jump on when he can. He's basically just en route. So Johnny, as always, welcome to the program. I know that you probably would much rather be on talking about a victory, but always appreciate you coming on and adding your insight from the opposing team, divisional team, and obviously you are a diehard Commanders fan, and as Eagle fans, we can certainly respect that. And are very interesting your take on the game as the Eagles come away with a 26-18 victory at home on Thursday night. So what we're going to just dive into is just your overall general thoughts on the game, and then we'll get a little deeper into the weeds. But welcome to the show, Johnny.
I appreciate it. The final score was an 8-point spread. When I predicted on the show last week, I thought that the final would be 31-23 Eagles. So I got the 8 right.
Yep.
There was less scoring from both teams than I would have expected.
Yeah, kind of what I was alluding to. I think, the Eagles, even if it's not been a Thursday night, they've been a slow starting team all season long.
Right. Washington has not. We've built leads in the first half in a lot of games, even in the Pittsburgh game.
Interesting.
And still had the lead this time. We just didn't have enough of a lead. To me, that was one of the keys, was that Washington left. Obviously, Philly left points on the table because of your kicker. But I think Washington left 7, if not maybe 10, when they got short fields and couldn't do enough with it to make it happen. Obviously, your defense is a huge reason for that. So that I think I was surprised about two things. I was surprised that Philly's defense defended Washington as well as you did, and I was surprised that Washington's offense did not move the ball like they have been. I mean, that's really the takeaway. Philly now, and actually, I was also surprised that Washington's defense did pretty well until they just got gassed in the fourth quarter. They made good holds. They played a lot better than they have against some of the teams they played this year.
So, yeah, I mean, we shared a few texts. We kind of waited to the second half of the game to even text each other. But
right.
I was letting you know that I'm like, listen, I mean, Barkley still had about 70 so yards before he really went off, but he had like 18 carries.
Right.
It was like guys were really.
It was under 4. It was under 4 a carry. I mean, that's
true. I think he was 9. Like it was 18 for. I think he was like 18 for 70 something at one point. I think he had a 3.9 average. I mean, that is good. You have to be happy as a Commanders fan with that. And I was kind of like, dude, because you were like, well, we're not really, stopping them or whatever. And I'm like, no, you kind of are. And then shortly after that, he, exploded for the 2 runs.
Right.
And I think you made a good point. The main reason for that is the Eagles' offensive line at that point of the game just took over. I mean, they were just, you see those 2 long plays. If you look at those 2 long runs again, I know it's not as appeasing to you as it is us, but the blocking, that they just manhandled your defensive line at that point in the game. And yeah, Barkley had these, huge lanes to run through, and as good as he is, he just takes those to the house. You give him that type of room, and he's gone.
Of course. And the reason he got those 2 runs in the fourth quarter is because RD was gassed. The offense did not put together nearly enough time clock consuming drives, way too many punts. I mean, they were the least number of punts in the league coming into the game. And I'm sure they're not now, because I think we punted 6 or 7 times, maybe 8. I mean, it was more than 2 or 3 games worth that we normally have. I mean, Philly locked down the stuff that Washington likes to do. And I'm starting to wonder, is there enough film now on what they were doing in the beginning of the year to to learn how the blueprint to do it, because it's happened 2 weeks in a row now. And that's what, from the Washington standpoint, that's
well,
what we're concerned.
Here's the interesting part. I was thinking the same thing, but I think because it was a Thursday game, I'm not sure how much, because I might have mentioned in our preview that we did, I said let's go to the tape of that Pittsburgh game.
Mm-hmm.
But when you only have like really a couple days to practice and prepare for the upcoming game, I don't know how much I'm sure they watched the Pittsburgh tape, but how much they can implement in that short of time and put into the game plan, I don't know, because it was such a short week. But so that's kind of interesting. I'd love to be able to just, sit Sirianni down and say, hey, how much did that Pittsburgh, game tape help you? And he might say, well, a lot, or we didn't even have a chance to really do much of what we saw in there. I don't know. But the Thursday game, I think maybe it affected Washington more than the Eagles, just because I can't say that it impacted the Eagles' slow start, because they've been slow starters the whole season.
Right.
So, but it was just kind of like I don't know. I don't want to use the word boring for an NFC East battle, but that first half was kind of boring.
Yeah, it was pretty bland. There was not very much offense to speak of on either side, and a lot of stops. You missed the field goals. We got one touchdown, and it was pretty bland by most standards, and not defensively controlled. I mean, I like
which is fine. I don't mind watching a good defensive game. I just thought the Eagles were, once again, I think a lot of it goes to Hurts. He was just not looking good again. He got hit on that one ridiculous play call that they had, where the Eagles were setting up some kind of like special.
The flea flicker. Yeah,
I don't know what it was going to be, because you guys executed your defense so well, and the Eagles mismanaged
like 12-yard sack.
I mean, it was like by the time they even got it to the third guy, which I think it was back to Hurts, your guy was right in sacking him. Basically, as the handoff was taking place. So I don't know what that play was going to be, but it was not executed well at all by the Eagles. And I think on that play, Hurts got like face planted into the ground. And because there were a lot of speculation during the game, I didn't really see much of a difference, but I wasn't looking. I had to go back to look at it. Is that he was maybe concussed or injured on that play?
He went into the tent, didn't he?
That was a little bit later on, like maybe about 6 or 7 plays later, they took him off the field.
Okay.
So you think that might happen?
You think that might have been the play? I don't remember hearing it that closely.
I don't see. I'm just saying feedback. The feedback that I've seen from Eagle fans is that was the play that he got, I guess, planted pretty hard into the turf.
Okay.
And they thought he might have been dinged up from that. And then they noticed finally that he was still not like all together, like a series of plays later. And then that's when they brought him to the tent. Either way, Hurts didn't play well, and again, I don't think he played well. And, I get some heat from Eagle fans when I criticize Hurts. I'm like, I'm not asking for him to be benched. I'm like, but I'm like, he just didn't play well again. It's just another game where I thought that there was throws he didn't make. I thought he was starting to see phantom pressure and leaving the pocket again too soon. So those are some things because that's what I criticize him most on since basically his whole career. I watch for those things every game. So maybe I'm more critical about that type of stuff than most Eagle fans. But I just feel at this stage of his career, you got to stop doing that stuff. At some point you got to learn to hang in the pocket and only escape when you need to. And I thought that, again, he had some happy feet and was leaving the pocket too soon and not hanging in there. And I thought he was inaccurate in the first, certainly in the first quarter into the second quarter. He's always good in his feet. So when he does escape, he can make plays that way. That's part of what makes him, the weapon that he is. But I didn't think it was a strong game by Hurts. It was strong enough to still win, so that's good. But to me, I'm looking at this. We need you to be, playing at your top to, before we certainly head to the playoffs. And I haven't seen it from him yet. There's been like 1 or 2 games out of the 10 games now where I thought Hurts has played well. So that's 20% of the season. So that's not.
I can't say that I've watched enough of your other games to know that for sure, but I know what I hear also.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Matt's take is, because we haven't, we purposely don't really talk much about the game because we save it for the show.
Right.
So I'm going to see if he, what he thought about Hurts's game, but we will hold off. Hopefully Matt will be joining us soon, because before I get into the thumbs up, thumbs down, I'm going to certainly have Matt. I want Matt to be here for that. What are your other just general thoughts about the game?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that there's still a pretty significant talent gap between Philly and Washington. And I think that gap has closed a lot from even 12 months ago, but there's still a gap there on both sides of the ball. Philly's more talented. It's been a great story that Washington's even gotten this far this fast, and not very many people expected this. So there's still a gap. I mean, but even in a game where there's still a gap with 12 minutes left, we're still ahead 10-6. And, there were a few bounces here and there.
True.
A very odd decision to go for it on 4th and 2 down 2 when it was 12-10 with 8 minutes left. You and I both immediately texted each other in what I would say shock. And
I was shocked. I don't know what you sound like you were too, just trying to read your message.
Shocked and angry.
I couldn't believe that.
I was angry. I thought that was a bad decision.
Well, that was the same series. Yeah, John, wasn't that the same series where it was like 2nd and 1 and the Eagles stuffed them, and then it was 3rd and 1, the Eagles stuffed them, maybe even sent them back the extra yard, and then they went through it on 4th down. Wasn't that the
correct? Yes, it went from 2nd and 1 to 4th and 2 on 2 straight running plays that Robinson got blasted on.
Right.
Jalen Carter probably made both of those plays. I mean, at least was the defining piece to making the play lose yards instead of gain yards. I mean, he's insane.
He was a monster that game.
That's not just that game. He's been doing that pretty much.
Yes, but there's certain games where he really just completely dominates, and that was definitely one of them.
Yeah, he was the best defensive player on the field.
Yeah, I definitely would agree.
For either side.
But the play itself, I didn't see a post game from your side, certainly. So what was the reason why they decided not to kick?
Yeah. Actually, and I'll give Dan Quinn credit for this, because he stepped up and did not sugarcoat anything. One of the first questions he said, "I know you're going to ask me about this, and here was my thought process."
Okay.
Paraphrasing some, he said something about, we didn't think that 3 points there was going to be enough. Our defense had already given up 2 drives previous to that got you from 3 to 13. Well, actually to 12 because of the missed PAT, but 2 drives in a row that led to a field goal and a touchdown. And he said that getting only even a 1-point lead there was going to be enough. So that was what he said. And the more I think about it, I hate the decision less. I hate the execution on the play.
Well, I tell you what, I think that's very interesting, which is why I asked you that question, because I did not hear, any of the post game from the Washington side. Mm-hmm. But if you think about it, number one, I think from a Washington fan perspective, he was right. I mean, maybe not on the play call, but I'm saying in terms of him having a pulse of his team at that point in the game.
Oh yeah, no, like I said, I was angry.
After that, the Eagles did completely take over.
Yeah,
that game. It was really, that was the big momentum switch of the game. That stop.
Yes, it was definitely. That is the pivotal play of the entire game, was the decision to kick it. Actually, the 2 plays that went from 2nd and 1 to 4th and 2 were the 2 big plays. Because if we get that first down, I think we're scoring a touchdown.
Right.
I mean, I think we're getting in the end zone if we have first and 10 from the 17. I mean, I
Well,
have
my point was that
I have confidence in my team to get that one.
as Matt has finally joined us.
Right on time.
What's going right on time? So we were talking about the pivotal play, series of plays, really, in the game when it was early in the fourth quarter when the Washington Eagles made two great plays. It was like 2nd and 1. Eagles stuffed them. Went to 3rd and 1. They stuffed them again. It went to 4th and 2, and then Quinn decided
this is when
to go.
This is when it was 12-10.
12-10.
12.
It was the decision to go for it or kick the go-ahead field goal.
Right. And so we were talking about the impact of that play, and I was asking John, because I didn't hear any of the post game from the Washington side, what was the reasoning behind Quinn's decision to go for it again? And he said basically that he kind of sensed that his team, because of the previous couple of drives by the Eagles, were getting gassed on defense. And I'm like, okay, I may not still agree with the call that he made, but that to me shows from a Washington perspective the sense of, the pulse of the team that your coach has, because it was after that play and the momentum shift in the game where the Eagles then went off with the 2 long Barkley runs and completely dominated from an offensive line perspective, that defense. So that's kind of where we were, right? When
What's funny about that is if they kick the field goal, though, and they go up, do the Eagles feel pressured to step away from the run game to go get the lead back? So because the whole game to me pivots around the Eagles not giving up on the run. And if this was last year or the year before or any of those years that the Eagles fans were truly frustrated with the coaching, it was because we stopped running the ball. Because Barkley was kind of quiet. He was contained, at least in the first half. And once we got that stop, they kind of committed to it. And the funny thing is, I'm not sure if that would have changed. If his name wasn't Saquon Barkley, the Eagles probably would have given up on the run. Because I'm not sure if the Eagles had to pass to move the ball, that they would have been able to do that. Because that's when Hurts seems to be so streaky and ice cold. So I love the fact that the coaching staff just kept handing the ball off to Barkley in that second half, and then finally 1 or 2 broke. And the thing is, like, they're usually not going to do that with any other running back. So I don't know. The sports junkies agreed with what you guys had said. Like, locally, they were all over they reported like it was a drive of 76 yards, a drive of 80 yards, another drive of 70-something yards. And, minus all those field goals we missed, Quinn didn't have any faith, I don't think, in the defense being able to stop us. And so he goes for it, which is, I think it's 50-50. If it works, that's one of those true calls where if it worked out, great. Quinn's happy. The Commanders fans are happy. The team's happy. And if it doesn't work out, well, then you're going to pay the price on the following day. So,
right.
Well, what made it more surprising is that the Eagles stuffed them the previous 2 plays where they went backwards essentially, and then still go for it on 4th down. It wasn't like they had this momentous drive going and they just decided to go for it on 4th down. I guess that's where I was kind of more shocked, that he didn't kick field goal and go up.
But I would say, though, the passes that got them down close in that drive were some of the best passes that he threw all night, though.
Yeah, and
he had by far his worst game of the year. I mean, it wasn't close.
He didn't look sharp. I'm watching Commanders games every weekend, and even though he's a little hurt still, probably from the injury with his rib,
he looked like a rookie. He looked confused. He looked nervous.
He wasn't throwing downfield like we've seen him throw all year. Everything was off to the flat.
He looked like he wasn't
or short over the middle. He didn't go deep at all.
No.
And even some of the short middle throws. I remember the one that just looked like he threw a sinker. Like the ball just sunk right out of view.
There was a few to the feet of the wide receivers, some worm burners.
No, he was not. He was less sharp, less aware. I mean, he made bad decisions. This was definitely his worst game. I mean, obviously the defense that we're playing against dictates a lot of that. But we have also played Pittsburgh, the Ravens, Cleveland, some other good defenses, and he didn't look like that.
No.
Philly totally wrecked everything that we've been doing and changed everything into scramble mode by the mid-second quarter.
Yeah, and we talked about Jalen Carter, and there was a play early in the game, might have been even the first or second series Washington had, where Carter, I think he got the ball off, but Carter's hit him pretty hard. And some people were speculating that, you hit a rookie quarterback that early in the game, it sticks with you. And maybe that had something to do with his struggles, because Carter did pop him pretty good early in the game.
No, he got hit more than there was one play I remember where he got hit by 3 Eagles.
Brandon Graham, Carter, and I think
No, I wouldn't say I could see that being likely, at least possible.
He had, even if he's like mostly healed, but in the whole delivery of throwing a football, it just bites you at the end or something. It's going to take the speed and the velocity and the accuracy out of the ball. So I think he was probably playing with a little bit of that injury hanging around, and maybe it was aggravated.
I've thought that. He's not 100%. I thought he was 90%. Now I'm not so sure. He might not be 75%.
Well, was he showing ill effects in the Steelers game from an injury, from the ribcage injury?
He wasn't as sharp as he had been, but I mean, he still led them to 27 points against the second or third ranked defense in the league. I mean, he didn't play nearly as badly as he played Thursday night.
Yeah, they showed him on the sideline a couple of times where they were at least adjusting.
Yeah, he had
his
some
protection, or he was still feeling there.
Yeah, I did see that too. That is true. Yeah, he may not be 100%. I mean,
he also had that cut on the middle of his hand, like in between his fingers.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I mean, the way I grip a football, all the torque is between my middle finger and my ring finger on my throwing hand, and I'm like, it looked kind of like that's where his was kind of in that middle, in between the middle fingers there.
He had that same injury in the Pittsburgh game. It might have been the same place, the same cut.
Oh, really?
Reopened. Yeah. That was an issue. That was an issue in the Pittsburgh game on Sunday also.
And and it's little things like that you can be tough and you can play through it, but when you're delivering the ball and you're snapping, and if that thing's gonna rip more, it's like, you're gonna have some apprehension there. Maybe just a slight number of RPMs was missing from his throws. But the local buzz is all concerned that Cliff Kingsbury is figured out, and I'm like, I don't think that's the case, but that's what has been the local talk on the sports channels out here, including the Sports Junkies. They're like, Cliff Kingsbury starts the season off great, and then they figure him out, and then they can't do anything for the rest of the year. But I'm like, I think that's true.
I mean, historically, it's true. I mean, there is data to prove it, that in whether he was head coach or OC, the second half of the seasons has not been as successful as the first half of the seasons were. And we'll see if that happens or not. But a lot of it still just depends on the quarterback.
Yeah. And I'm hoping for our sake, the Eagles' sake, that the Commanders come out and crush whoever they're playing next week, because that'll make me feel truly confident about our defense. Of like, we got a gold medal D, and if you got a gold medal D, and you can run the ball. That means a late push for the Super Bowl in bad weather. So we'll see what happens next week. Who do they play next week?
Just the Cowboys.
Cowboys. We are all home. Commanders fans next week.
At home, no less. We got them at home this time.
Nice.
This is the first of the two that we play them.
Okay.
So, speaking of which, I was saying, that in the immediate aftermath of losing, Geoff, you and I were messaging, and I was saying that, okay, congrats, you're going to win the East, and you're going to be playing Detroit in the NFC title game, which I do think that's the most likely outcome of who ends up in the NFC title game. It will be a big question as to who gets home field on that. But I don't know now. You still have to play Pittsburgh and Baltimore. and the rest of the schedule for the Commanders is actually pretty manageable.
Yeah, I'm more concerned. Like, I think they'll beat the Steelers. Not really worried about them. I think the Eagles are better than them. I think Baltimore will be definitely a challenge. That game, I could easily see the Eagles losing that one.
And then, here's what concerns me about the Steelers. If it's Justin Fields at quarterback, yeah, I agree. But it's Russell Wilson.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Russell Wilson does never lose against the
Eagles.
He's not beaten his career. That's true.
We lost to him 6 days ago, and it still stings. That one actually stings more to me than the Philly game, because I expected to lose to Philly, but I thought we were going to beat Pittsburgh and really should have beat them.
Yeah, I don't think Pittsburgh's that good. I mean, they're playing better for sure. But Matt makes a good point. I didn't think about the Wilson factor. The Eagles never beat him.
Yeah, Russ is Pittsburgh with Russ is different than Pittsburgh with Fields. Even though they were winning games, they're way more dangerous now.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, Wilson doesn't move like he used to. And if we only have to worry about George Pickens, even though Mike Williams, he didn't waste any time catching a touchdown pass coming over to the Steelers from the Jets. Right. But I don't know. I'm curious to see.
He's in a different uniform now, so I'm not as worried about him. He's still in a different uniform.
If Jalen Carter shows up like he has, Johnny, we were talking earlier in the season about, Jalen Carter's got to stop being so streaky. He's got to show up game after game after game. That's what the all-pros do. And he's got all the talent to do that, and yet he disappear for stretches. And so he's got 2 or 3 consistent games in a row now. So I'm like, if he's on, he's the key to the entire defense. Everyone else gets their sacks, and the cornerbacks are able to lock down because Jalen Carter's been a beast for everybody.
Right. I mean, Geoff and I talked about that a little while ago, that I said he was the best defensive player on the field for either team, and it really wasn't even close.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a game-wrecking performance.
Yeah, so my barometer of this game is interesting too, because I'm like, because I think the score, again, this is Eagle fan perspective, Eagles show, but I'm sure Johnny may have a difference of opinion. But I'm gonna explain why I'm thinking there's a little bit more of a gap than what the score shows. Number one, we missed Elliott. We'll talk about him more later because I'll give it away. He's in my thumbs down. Not surprising. But here's a guy who's 95% effective most every year kicking field goals. And these weren't even long field goals, and he missed extra points. So I'll just say at least he would have hit one of the field goals. So let's just give the Eagles an extra 3 points there, making it 29, and the extra point, 30. So you got 30 points there. Maybe he misses the other field goal, so we'll just keep it at 30. And then there was the late touchdown there, kind of in garbage time, where that the Eagles gave up, to Zach Ertz. So I guess what I'm saying is it more like a 30-7 or 30-10 game? In terms of the gap between these two teams, or is it closer? More like a touchdown difference between these two teams. I'm more of. You ever heard from figured it out from my, I guess my argument I'm trying to build. I think it's a bigger gap between the two teams than the final score. Your thoughts?
I don't know. I think it comes down to exactly what every one of us pointed out on the pregame podcast, where we said it's going to come down to the offensive and defensive lines. And both of those sides of the ball were better on Philly. So I think that leans that way. But I don't know. It was, if we had a mid-game podcast, we'd be like, wow, this wasn't what we expected. It's a defensive battle. We were both predicting, everyone was predicting we'd be up over 25 points for both teams, and just who's going to win by a field goal. So I don't know. I think a lot of that's hindsight's 2020. I think, because if you take away the Ertz touchdown, I think you could also take away the second Barkley touchdown as well, because that's kind of garbage time. And I think the Commanders were giving up at that point. I think the defense was giving up. But also that may have been a result because we did keep running the ball, and that's the whole difference between these analytics and the football that I grew up watching. If your hogs, to use an old Redskins term, are better than the defensive line, then you just keep mashing them down until they are exhausted and you've stolen their will and they give up. And I thought that's what happened in the second half. But if you were to ask me, even at the end of the third quarter, what's the difference between these two teams, I'd be like, I don't know. They're both pretty solid. if you have a healthy Jade Daniels playing quarterback who's been throwing the ball like he has up to this point, I think that has an impact too. I think they're closer, than what you're thinking, Geoff, but I definitely think the Eagles are better. And they just, the Junkies were going through position by position, and they're like, who on the Commanders would start right now on the Eagles? And there was maybe two players, like Terry McLaurin, of course, might find some space, but does he remove Smith or Brown? Probably not, but he definitely gets on the field ahead of Dotson. And he's equal to Smith and Brown. He's the number one guy. So, like, you can make the argument there. You can maybe make the argument as well for Jeremy Chin and maybe Luva, the defensive
guy. Yeah, well, that Lula guy.
So those three players out of an entire roster are the three that would maybe make this Eagles team. The rest of them, the Eagles have the advantage on, clearly, I think.
Well,
so it's like,
yeah, I think you're kind of making my point. Saying
I might be, but the way that game played out, though, I wouldn't have agreed with that all the way up to the third quarter.
I think the well, there's reasons for that though. Hurts once again played terrible in the first half. He was horrible, if not terrible.
But isn't it part of his game?
Well, he hasn't been playing well versus anybody. I don't think it had anything to do with Washington. I think he's just not been playing well for most of the season. I said to Johnny before he came on, I'm like, there's 2 games out of the 10 this year that he's played what I would consider well. There's 8 games that he's average or below average for
actually don't
being paid $50 million a year.
Don't forget too, though, that Washington's defense now is led by Dan Quinn and Witt Jr. that were at Dallas and they know how to defend Philadelphia to some extent. They know this isn't brand new defense. This is a defense that came over, at least the schemes came over from Dallas's defense.
Yeah, that was my most impressive part of watching that game. Is I was very impressed by Washington's defense, and I especially against the run, because there's a lot of runs out of the 18 or so before Barkley really took off. I would say out of those 18 runs, maybe 7 of them, he was stuffed right at the line of scrimmage. Nowhere to go.
I think Washington's defense is greatly improved, and that's why it was disappointing that the offense played as poorly as they did, because the defense played well enough that if the offense had their average game, Washington would have won. You wouldn't have had 2 Barkley runs in the fourth quarter with 4 minutes left, because we would already have been ahead by 10 or 14. Yeah, halftime score should have been 17-6.
I'm not even sure if the score was even closer than that if the Eagles would have stuck to the run in the second half. If they were down by any amount, I think they would have hit a little bit of the panic button. You may have seen Sirianni.
I think the pressure would have been on Philly if Washington had played better offense in the first half when they had a chance to make it 7-3 was not where that score should have been. It should have been 17-6, maybe, if you give Jake one of the field goals.
Yeah, we're gonna get into it. So maybe this is a good time to get a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Yeah.
So let's start with thumbs up, and we're gonna have Johnny talk about his thumbs up for obviously the Commanders. So let's start with Johnny, and then Matt, we'll go with you. Give me. We kind of keep going around, so just give me right now a thumbs up for you, Johnny.
One thumbs up for the game for Washington was Austin Eckler, for sure. He was
scares me.
He was the only guy that Daniels even threw to. I mean, he had 8 catches for, 85 yards or something. Good running plays. I mean, he is still a real weapon, and grateful to have him.
Definitely. You know what? It's funny you mentioned him. Not funny, but it's dead on accurate. And then when we did our pregame together, when I was watching the game, I'm like, man, I didn't talk about Eckler enough. I know we mentioned him. I think I mentioned him actually, but I probably would have further pounded the emphasis on him, because I think I said he's a touchdown. Like, he's just really good in the red zone. He's better. He's better even outside of the red zone. He's great receiving the ball. He was the guy that was most scared of the entire game was him. And he did well. He played well, obviously, thumbs up. So I think he's a great player. I have a lot of respect for that guy. Matt, you got a thumbs up?
Well, so my thumbs up goes to the Eagles coaching staff. Nick Sirianni did not get involved. He let the coaches coach, And like I said, my biggest fear was they're going to stop, that this game's close, they're going to stop running the ball. And that's the one thing that these defensive coaches that came over from Dallas that are running the Commanders team and their defense now, that we wouldn't do that. We would give up. And I think they applied the same game plan, only we stuck to run the ball until Barkley broke one. And I don't think, if that running back's name is not Barkley, I think the Eagles move on and they try to pass. And I think they would have possibly lost the game that way. So great job by the coaches to just, I mean, I've been saying it since the beginning of the season. Don't turn the ball over and run the ball, commit to it, and you'll pretty much win every game, minus an anomaly here and there. So that's my thumbs up. Way to keep pounding the rock, even though it wasn't working early.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I think out of my 3 that I wrote down for thumbs up, 2 of them are obvious. We've already talked about both of them. So I'll go with my third pick here to start us off, and that would be what do I got here? Let's go with it would be helpful looking at the right game. I'm like looking at my notes and I'm like, that's not right.
Put on some readers, dude.
So I'll go with the combination, the linebackers, Bond and N'Kobe. I thought both played well, just all over the field, and except for one, speaking of Eckler, that one play where Bond tried to bring him down one step. I thought Bond played another great game, and N'Kobe was all over the place too again. And so I'll give both of those guys, the shared linebacker role between those two, my thumbs up for the game. Any thoughts on that before we go on to Johnny's second thumbs up?
No, Bond's been consistent, like so consistent this year. So Howie's got to start thinking about signing him and creating some space somewhere so we don't let him go.
Yeah, I'll admit I did not really even know who he was until about 3 weeks ago. I literally never heard his name, even being a hardcore football fan. I didn't know who he was. He was impressive.
Yeah, he's been playing like that all season. He really has been a huge pickup for the Eagles.
Yeah.
And the Eagles need to lock him in for sure. Johnny, do you have a second thumbs up for the game? If you don't, that's fine. We just go as many as 3.
I'll go one more, and it's hard to do that. My second thumbs up is our rookie cornerback Sanders still. I think
he played well.
10 picks after Cooper DeJean from the trade up that you guys made with us. He was on at various points. He was on Brown and Devontae and broke up passes in the end zone that in previous years would have been touchdowns. He, for a rookie coming in, being basically thrown to the wolves especially because Lattimore is not playing yet. He actually played real, deserved that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
How do you pronounce his last name?
Sanristil.
Sanristil, yeah. Yeah, he was very good. Very impressed by him. Yep, he looks like a player for sure.
I thought for sure we were going to get a touchdown to Brown on the left side of the field, about a 30-yard strike, and he's right there. The ball was placed high. I'm like, oh, this is a touchdown. I'm like,
nope. You thought that was a touchdown because you've seen that play result against Washington. At least 5 times in the 3.
Yep.
That is a touchdown, and it wasn't this time. I thought the same thing. It's like, here we go again.
Yeah.
He was there, and I mean, that
was
pretty good.
He played well. Yeah, because Eagles have, I mean, you're not going to get a better test in the league with 2 guys than the Eagles have. And he played very well. He really did. He stood out.
That's all I have for thumbs up. Sorry.
That's all right. You don't need to have 3. Matt, you got another thumbs up?
Well, we already mentioned Jalen Carter, so he's known. If he's on, then the other Eagles players have a chance to shine. So Q keeps just going silently. I don't think the rest of the league knows how good that guy is yet, but
they're starting to.
Terry always chews up the Eagles, and to see Terry catch his first pass in the second half is like, all right, what's going on here? We've got somebody that can cover him. And Quentin Mitchell is he's playing lights out at cornerback. And he talks a lot on the field, but he's a very quiet dude off the field. So you don't even hear him speaking or doing much. He does all his trash talking on the field. And I'm sure McLaurin and Brown caught plenty of that on the field. But he has been about as flawless as you can be as a rookie. And I'm sure there's mistakes that lie ahead. And we keep waiting to see him get smoked or burnt.
This guy's getting burnt some games. It hasn't happened the whole season.
Yeah. And he's played all these good receivers. So I'll give cue my thumbs up.
Oh, I definitely. He's on my list too, so I don't even have a third thumbs up now because the other two are Carter and him. But yeah, he's to now lock down a guy who is an Eagle killer. We know how successful McLaren has been against the Eagles almost every single game, and to hold him to 1 catch and 10 yards. That's, you can't ask for a better job than that. Maybe, Daniel's injury had something to do with it where he didn't throw longer than he normally does. He didn't throw. I mean, they really didn't challenge at all. So is that because of Mitchell was all over him? Now, there's a lot of footage out there that shows 6 or 7 plays of him covering McLaren, and he was like glue on McLaren. So I think it's more that than Daniel's not throwing down or the game plan not throwing deep. But I guess we'll never fully know the answer to that question. But he had another spectacular game. John, do you have any thoughts?
He's looks like the real deal. And I don't think that we all of a sudden decided to stop throwing downfield. They take shots every game. I mean, deep 50, 60-yard bombs.
Right.
We didn't even try one as far as I know.
No, didn't.
There wasn't one up there. So I would say we're ready for a thumbs down. The single thumbs down in the game was Washington's offensive line as a unit. I don't know which ones of them played better or worse than others, but collectively they were terrible. And that was they could not block enough to win a game against a good defensive line, defensive front. And that made everything else not work. That didn't give Daniels time to throw, and he may not have been 100% throwing anyway, but the offensive line is the reason that we lost the game, period.
Yeah, good thumbs down. I would agree. And what's good about from the Eagles' perspective is the Eagles didn't blitz that much either to get the pressure.
Yeah, four were getting there enough to make
getting it up front.
Make Daniels completely disrupted and to keep the running game under 3.5 yards a carry. And we've done Washington's done so much more than that against every team they played, even against Pittsburgh, and they couldn't do it. So,
yeah, I think we're getting back to Matt's original point too, where like the Eagles, as Eagle fans, were like, man, is this defense this good? And like every week, it's especially since the bye week,
getting better.
Why? Yeah,
early on in the season, Eagles were giving up big plays. Yeah, they have a new defensive coordinator. They got rookies back there, but man, ever since the bye week, they are shutting everyone down. In fact, your first touchdown, broke a streak of like 3 or 4 games where the Eagles didn't even give up a touchdown. So
did it really?
At least I think it was 3 games. Maybe 4 is too much. I think it was around 3 games where the Eagles didn't even give up a touchdown to any team. So that was pretty impressive that they still played as well as they did, shutting down McLaren, again, Eagle killer, and making Daniels look the way he did.
Right.
Matt, do you have a thumbs up for the Eagles?
No, I'll throw a thumbs down.
Out
there. Yeah. I think we keep expecting Hurts to be an A player all the time, but he is so inconsistent in his career that is who he is. So you have to be able to. I mean, Barkley and that defense is the reason why we're going to win anything from here on out. If Hurts is on, great, we'll blow out teams. If he's off, we have a chance to win if you commit to the run, and maybe that defense can get some turnovers back. And like I said, Hurts can be off, and as long as he doesn't turn the ball over, we'll be all right. But if he's truly off and gets back to throwing the ball away, I mean, the one thing I do like about him this year, he seems to be not playing hero ball. So he might give up on a play too fast. He might be a one-read quarterback, but when he doesn't have it, he'll try to scramble if it's not there. He's just chucking it out of bounds.
He's tossing it out of bounds.
That's okay with me. I'll take that versus those silly hero ball turnovers. So
across his body, trying to play.
Yeah. So it's funny because I started this off as a thumbs down, but I'm like, yay for you. You threw the ball out when you needed to throw it out.
Right.
And just let your other players win. And I think that's hard for Hurts to understand. It took him a while to get that point. But he is streaky. Like he can go ice cold to fiery hot within 2 or 3 plays. And it's like when he's hot, okay, maybe you throw that ball a little bit more. But as soon as he has one little thing where he's off, then you got to go back to that run game. And I'm not sure you want. I think the ideal passes for this Eagles team to win is about 15 to 22 passes a game, and just let the running game take over.
Well, we just lost Johnny. Hopefully, we'll jump back on. So I agree with your entire assessment there. Like I said, people, when I get on into it with some of these Eagle fans, automatically I'm a Hurts hater. I hate him. And I'm like, no, I mean, I don't hate him. I mean, you got to be able to have a non-Eagle goggles, whatever you want to call them, perspective when you watch this team. And I remember maybe these fans are younger, and obviously when you're younger, you're not as
wise.
Yeah, you're not as wise into watching. I'm sure. I mean, I love Randall Cunningham. I'm sure I overlooked a lot of his flaws when he was. I think when he was when I was growing up, and you learn later that he didn't read defenses all that great. He did later in his career, but so I think it's probably some of that. It's probably younger Eagle fans where they're not watching the game as like critical as I am. And there's a lot that I like about Hurts, and there's just a lot of things that at year five, and we're paying him $50 million a year, that you're like, you just wished it would finally get out of his game or he'd improve on. And I think he's too much of a one-read quarterback. You could see it when he's playing. He's looking at one guy, and if he's not open, it's automatically like, oh, he's happy feet, and he's looking, he's like in a panic all of a sudden. It's like, oh my guy's not open. What do I do now? It's like you have two of the guys that are running patterns. So you look at them. But he's like, he's not open. You just almost see him like come into this little mini panic where he's just like, okay, I got to get out of the pocket now, or I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do.
His feet are moving. Even one of the plays where he scrambled to the right and got 7 or 8 yards. I don't think he got a first down out of it. But if he's going through read one not there, read two not there, and then boom, you throw to the running back. The running back was wide open out there in the flat to the right, and if he just threw the running back that ball and let him make the play, they would have gotten probably 5 more yards than what Hurts was able to do running that play out there. And I don't know if he was, going to use him as a blocker or what, but I'm like, 1, he's not there. 2, he's not there. Hit the checkoff and go hit the back in the flat. The running back's looking for it. He's got 12 yards of space around him. And I'm like, oh my God, if you hit that running back there, he can make a move and get into the secondary, let them play. I'm sure they're looking at that stuff at film, but it's like, he's got to be able to make sure that he can see that. Just add that to his game and slow improvements. Now, here's what's great about Hurts. No matter how bad he ends up screwing up anything at any point in the game, he never checks out. Like, so that mentality is so important to have as a quarterback. You see it in all the other greats of all time. Like, but you just want to see a little bit more ability to read defense. But maybe that's not who he is. And if it's not, then just keep this game right where it's at. 18 to 22 passes a game. Rely on that running game. Rely on that offensive line. And just pound the rock until Hurts gets through those moments. With the talent that we have on offense, sure, A.J. Brown should be just dominating every week, and so should Smith, and so should this passing game, but that's not the quarterback we have. We have a streaky quarterback who's never quite shown all of that consistency throughout a season. And so you have to play with that and play to his strengths and just make sure you minimize the mistakes. And I think they've done a good job with that. But let's not pretend like Hurts is going to ever be Mahomes or Montana or even Cunningham. Hurts is Hurts. And as long as he's throwing the ball away, that's fine. Don't turn the ball over is the most important thing. We can win every game.
The ball, not fumble it too, is another issue that he has. But yeah, I think you made a good point that he is throwing the ball away more than trying to pull some Houdini act. So he's definitely improved there. It's certainly a step forward. He just knows the play is dead and he's throwing it out of bounds. Great. I still wish he didn't leave the pocket too soon when he's got a pocket still there.
Yeah.
That's the parts. Those are the things, and sometimes he'll do it. That's the part that's frustrating. You'll see him do it some games, and then he'll just resort back into old habits the next game. That's the part that's just drives me nuts. And you also make a good point about how you just never feel a game's over with him. He's a guy. There's a reason why he wins, and he won in college. He won in he's won in the NFL. He doesn't let it get to him. I don't think he ever thinks they're ever going to lose a game, even when they're down. Now, sometimes he'll still resort to bad habits, for the rest of the game. It's not like he just all of a sudden becomes this great quarterback at the end, but he's just everyone always talks about how he's just even keel. They can be up by 30 points, but the Eagles can be losing by 30 points, and his demeanor and his facial expressions are always the same.
They never
so
change.
that's a good thing out of a quarterback, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of people used to make fun of McNabb because, they'd be losing by, losing late in the game, and he's like out there laughing like he had a good time. That never really bothered me, but I know it bothered some fans because I always thought McNabb was still always one that was out there trying to win to the end. I never thought that he was a quarterback that, gave off bad vibes or anything. But and even Cunningham, Randall was I guess you never, just because of his athletic ability and his arm and everything else, that you never really thought, because the Eagles back then with Cunningham, they could score, they'd be down and he could make one play and go 80 yards. Just, that's how good he was. But he was very inconsistent also, much like Hurts in that sense. I think once you sign a big mega contract, you just hope, and especially year 5, you just hope that he's able to just start showing more steps forward than he has.
There's an adjustment period, though. When you sign those multi-million-dollar contracts and you're set up for life, you naturally, I think, as a human being, feel like I have to be the superhero. Like, they are paying me all this money. I'm like, no, you don't have to be the superhero. You just need to keep doing what you've been doing to get to this place, and then just incrementally improve from here. Like, how did you get here? Distributing the ball, making smart plays, staying checked in. So we don't need you to be extra special. We just need you to be who you are, and we'll keep everything consistent. Right.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, when it comes to Hurts, is like, this team is now playoff bound, and it's going to come down to facing good team, maybe in the NFC Championship, either probably the 49ers, because I'm not ruling them out yet, or Detroit for sure. And you can't be fumbling the ball, and you can't be inconsistent in those games. We're going to need Jalen Hurts to be the Jalen Hurts. Like you said, they can still win with him being a game manager. That is true, especially if this defense keeps playing the way that they're playing. But Detroit's got a team, even if you have a good defense, they're going to put 20 points on you, probably.
It's crazy it's crazy that they won a game where Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions. Like, that is incredible. That shows you how talented they are on defense and on offense to overcome all of that and win a game. That's insane. Like, that is, I was like, oh, here they go. The wheels are falling off.
It hasn't been done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they said in the game that, I think they put a stat up there in the game that it hasn't been done since 1970. That's older than me. So,
that's insane.
A long time ago since that's happened, where a quarterback's thrown 5 picks and the team won. That's hard to do. That's very hard to do. So we have lost Johnny, just for the audience. He said he's having trouble reconnecting, and he's got a dinner date, so he's not going to be coming back. So thanks, Johnny, again for your time. So Matt, do we have another thumbs down for the Eagles? By the way, my thumbs down was also Hurts. One of my thumbs down was Hurts. So we both hit on Hurts. Do you have another thumbs down for the game?
Not really. No, I'm tired of the refs. My thumbs down is on they had they at least paid the other team. I thought there was a fake
that was my number 2
against the Commanders early, where I'm like, that was not a defensive holding. Like, it was like, and like when how many times have you seen it where if you're running a route and the cornerback's off, they do have light contact almost every time out of the break, right? And it's never called, and it never should be called, and yet a flag comes out, right? And then they're picking them up sometimes after a conference, and then the other ones are letting go. And I'm just like, can you guys like how are you missing the Sam Darnold face mask turnaround and the Joe Burrow hand in his face last week? How are you missing those things? And then you're calling.
They missed the face mask, the face swap to the head. on Burrow, and they missed the total blatant pass interference on the tight end he was going to try to throw to.
Yeah. So different crews. I get it, but
I mean, the guy was totally gone.
yeah. And the one I know the one penalty I agreed with was the one that they threw on DeJean, I think, because you did see his arm extended and the jerseys being pulled out, even though it was like for a microsecond and it didn't impede progress. That one's probably thrown every time.
I get it if you're going to go buy the book, but that's the type of stuff that's too ticky-tack, you know, especially when they let the blatant ones go. You know,
well,
all that was just ridiculous.
Start with the blatant ones and work backwards from there. But I can at least see you get an extended arm and jerseys pulled, they're going to throw that almost every time. But these other things that should be thrown every time, like let the other little stuff go. Like it's just so weird to see some of these penalties. And it didn't impact the game, I don't think, in a way that could have been detrimental to either team. But it's just like, come on. Like I'm tired of seeing these like horrible calls.
Right. And it did impact the Cincinnati game. And it did impact the Minnesota game.
The other games, yes. Not the Eagles Commanders game.
You know, not the Eagle game. No, but it could have. And it impacted our Super Bowl. Now, that one was probably more of a blatant hold. But when they're not calling that play the whole game, and then they decide to call it in a crucial spot. That was my issue with the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. They didn't call that stuff the entire game, and then they wait till 2 minutes left in the game, and then they're going to call it. That's an issue too. But the NFL, it's getting so bad that the NFL is going to need to do something. Either you give the coaches, maybe it's a different color, hanky, because so they can challenge a penalty once a game. Something because the refs are just it's so bad.
Yeah, they would probably challenge everything though if that were the case. Like,
no, just do one.
But if you're talking hockey, everyone understands that if the game is close in the third period, like the refs' whistles pretty much go away unless it's completely just follow. And I think that's what fans are the most ticked off about is you can't like the penalty that wasn't called for the face mask on Sam Darnold. That had huge impact on the game. The penalty that you were talking about with Bradbury and the Chiefs, huge impact on the game. So, and it's not blatantly obvious with the Bradbury one. It is blatantly obvious with the Sam Darnold one, and yet no call on the Joe Burrow. And it's just like those are huge, impactful moments. Like nobody's going to criticize you for
leaving the team the game. That's the difference between winning and loss.
Right. So it's like just they seem to have no grasp of the momentum of the game and when they should or shouldn't blow that whistle. And so much of these are in that middle spot of non-reviewable plays. And then I can't stand it when they all conference as well. Like the flat, just it looks as if they've been given guidance that says, well, throw the flag because you can always reverse it back with the conference. And I'm like, no. Keep the flag in your effing pocket because to do the act of throwing the flag means you saw something serious that made you do that. Otherwise, get your hands away from those flags. That's what I want to see. Because they'll know it.
I agree.
It for sure. And that is when you throw the flag. Watching all these flags go all over the field. And then, 3 men are talking. And some of them are ridiculously long.
It's always going to be the wrong. Most of the time, it'd be the wrong call when they have their conference.
Yeah.
It's not like they get it right. They're like, no, they still make the stupid call. It's like, come on, guys.
Driving me nuts on that stuff. So that would be my second thumbs down. And my first one for Hurts, really kind of just a barely, like, where's my camera? Hurts' thumbs down is just like that. Maybe I want to see more consistency. The other thumbs down that
you're frozen on the screen, Matt. I'm not sure if it's going to come out that way in video, but on my screen, you're frozen. I can hear you fine, but you're frozen. So I'm not sure. Okay. I'm just saying, I'm not sure if the audience will be able to see whatever you just did with your thumbs.
Okay.
I'm with you too. It's like, again, it's any time, not necessarily on this show. But when I don't even get into it. I'll just post something critical of Hurts, and all of a sudden I'm a hater, and I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, oh, guys, it's just I know exactly what. First of all, I know what I'm talking about. Secondly, I don't hate Hurts. Don't hate him at all. I got when you got a guy that you give $50 million a year to. You just expect him to be improving from things that have been flaws of his. And I haven't seen it. I'll see it over short stretches. and then it comes right back. And that's the stuff. That's the stuff that's just. And I think it's because I do like him, and I do have high expectations for him, that I have a critical eye for him on these type of things.
Well, so it's
But,
because the ceiling is so high, right? Like,
Right.
man, if you
Yeah.
get these things locked in,
Right.
you can be one of the greatest that ever played the game. So some of that is our Eagles fans' frustration coming out, where we're like, you should be better. You should be working on these things, but maybe he's going to prove it over the next 2 or 3 years that maybe this is just what he is. Like, 1-read, 2-read guy, scramble. Maybe he's got panicky feet at times. But, if he just takes care of that and lets Howie build the roster around that, they are proving that they can win games and get all the way to the Super Bowl, even with that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why Howie went out and got Barkley. Maybe Howie knows what he's got in Hurts, and he's like, you know what? We need a game breaker at running back. And maybe that.
Yeah, we need a plan B if plan A is off his game.
Yeah. And I love that Barkley's coming through for us every week, because that is going to change the philosophy of the GMs and the structure there with Howie for years to go. If they end up with a quarterback like Hurts, and they're like, well, we know what we can do if we just get stud offensive line. By the way, another thumbs up I would give is to the center, Cam Jurgens. There was a replay on a block that he had where he gets around his guy, gets into the second level, and he just tosses a linebacker straight
through like 10 yards backwards.
Yeah, just like a piece of cake. Just tossed him like he wasn't even there. And he is.
That's what opened up the secondary. The only guy that could have made a tackle on to stop Barkley, and he was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
Once Barkley got to him, because Jurgens threw him away, like you said.
He did, and he's a load. He's a bigger guy than Kelsey was.
He's bigger than Kelsey is. Yeah.
And he moves just as quick. So it's going to be fun to watch them just load up on this line and keep the line healthy.
Yeah.
And let them just keep drafting and keep filling in guys that can play, because this is a winning formula, for at least the next 2 or 3 years, as long as they got Barkley there.
Yeah. And they, the other thing I mentioned about Barkley is you heard after the game when they were talking to Lane Johnson, and I think it was Mailata. So they said that even though he was like contained for the 3 quarters, that he was on the sideline. We're gonna break one. He was telling all the offensive linemen, guys, keep doing what you're doing. We're gonna break one. We're gonna break one. It's coming. And he kept encouraging his offensive linemen. And sure enough, he broke 2 of them in the 4th quarter. So we're gonna have we're not gonna do any of the preview stuff for the Rams. We'll save that for later next week. So Matt and I will be back to preview the Rams, and that's going to be a big game. The Rams are a much better team right now than they were a few weeks ago. They got Puka's back,
Cup, both healthy.
Cooper Cup's back. The running back's really good. Williams, obviously Stafford's he's still a good quarterback. Defensively, I think it's probably the Rams' weakness, but offensively they can score with anybody, and that's game in LA. It's the last, I think, travel game, at least long travel game for the Eagles this year. Everything else, the rest of the season, is on the East Coast. The Raven game is just Baltimore, and everything else, I think they end up 4 straight games at home.
Yeah, we get Dallas at home.
So,
we get the Giants at home.
Who the other is. Right, you get Dallas at home. Washington again is the away game, but that's right down the pike. So like the whole rest of the whole 4th quarter of the season is all either at home or short traveling. So that's going to work in Eagles' favor. This is like the last long road trip, this Rams game. So any final thoughts on the game or around the league before we
took care? All I got to say is we took care of our business every week after the bye, which is exactly what we needed to do. We're in good shape to go take on these really tough teams now. We have a healthy team. Stay healthy. A mini bye week coming up. Don't eat.
Is 100% healthy.
Yeah, don't eat too much turkey on Thanksgiving Day, and show up next weekend, weekend after Thanksgiving, ready to crush souls. The outlook for the NFC East is Commanders we'll see where they go. Do they crumble?
Right. They've hit their first.
Do they rebound? Yeah, I think the Giants and Cowboys are both done at this point. So, got to be wary of them as NFC East opponents, but we should crush them. Yeah,
I was just saying,
We're-
both of those teams are just imploding from the inside right now.
yeah. So I think the best we can do is root against the Buccaneers so that they don't show up in the playoffs anywhere, and then we'll be all right. I think we have good history against the Detroit Lions, but what an awesome game it would be to go play. We'll see what happens to the Lions too.
Yeah,
I'd rather have them in
Yeah.
Philly, but
right. I mean, that one point loss or whatever, game 2, that game that should have never lost to the Falcons, that could come back and bite the Eagles for home field advantage versus the Lions.
thanks. That one's totally on Nick Sirianni.
Well, Sirianni and Barkley.
And Barkley. Yeah, you got to catch that, man.
It's hard to knock Barkley, but I mean, come on. You got to make.
Yeah.
But that's we'll see how it goes. I think Detroit's got a tougher schedule, so we'll see. Either way, Detroit has earned it. If they end up getting number 1 seed, it's not like Detroit hasn't earned it. That is a true Super Bowl contender over there in Detroit for sure. You still there?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, and but here's the thing.
Yeah,
you mentioned
rolling though.
I would much rather play. This is going to sound crazy, but it's true. I really feel this way. I would much rather play the Lions than Tampa Bay. I would have more faith in beating the Lions than I would the Buccaneers. I remember in the pregame last week, I said to Johnny, I'm like, or maybe it was just we were wrapping up one of the other games recently, and I'm like, man, if there's any team that wants to figure out how to beat the Eagles, you get on the horn with Todd Bowles because he certainly owns Hurts.
Yeah.
And the last few times they played the Buccaneers, they haven't been able to do anything against that team at all.
Never good.
And their offense killed.
We look awful. Hey, I got to roll, Geoff.
Yeah, no. I'll thanks for the time. I know it's a busy weekend. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We will be back probably Wednesday, Thursday next week to preview the Rams game. Until then, we're in first place. We're at the top of the heap. Number 2 seed right now. 8-2. Can't complain about that. Matt, appreciate it as always. And we'll catch y'all later. Fly Eagles fly. And
Fly Eagles fly.
We'll see you.
Happy Turkey Day.
We'll see you in the middle. Thanks, guys. See you later.